Clark Kellogg was on his way to NBA stardom.
Tony Brown on him. Kellogg with a steal on the pass. Woolridge defending. What a move! Kellogg with 29.
In the corner. And with the jam. Hello. Oh, Clark.
The same Clark Kellogg who you've been hearing on 2K for years.
Well, I tell you, it's pretty obvious. Embiid takes pride in and enjoys tricking his defenders and getting them to jump on the pump fake.
Before LeBron James, Kellogg was the best player to come out of Ohio.
Much has been said about Clark Kellogg recently. Coming out of high school, probably the most heralded player in the country.
That's Special K.
An undersized forward whose versatile offensive game was on full display at Ohio State.
Here comes the freshman. He is a scintillating performer.
Clark Kellogg is a Super Bowl player to watch, though. He's the top rebounder in the Big Ten and is number 4 scorer.
His rebounding was his most valuable asset.
They call him the Lord of the Board down here in Columbus. He's a great garbage man around the basket.
Drafted by the Pacers in the early 80s, Kellogg's future looked very bright.
Bobby Knight before said that Clark Kellogg is perhaps the best power forward in the country.
One of the best forwards in the league over his first few seasons. Everything was going to plan, until it wasn't.
I'm a little worried about Clark. He has not been feeling well at all on his knees, and he really took it hard.
Kellogg went until the wheels fell off, but by 25 years old, he had played his last game. Fortunately, he pivoted and embarked on a legendary broadcasting career. But Clark Kellogg still remains one of the most forgotten what-ifs in NBA history.
So I'm looking forward to the challenge of the NBA.
Let's jog your memory. Throughout the late 70s, Clark Kellogg became a household name in Cleveland, Ohio. Attending St. Joseph's High School, Kellogg was a 4-year varsity starter, standing 6'7" by his sophomore year. Kellogg's size and athleticism made him a dominant force on the court. There was nothing he couldn't do, and he made it all look easy. He was the perfect prospect, and his college recruitment was expected to reach historic levels. By his junior season, he was the best player in the state of Ohio. As a senior, Kellogg made his case for best player in the country. Most were already calling him the best player to ever come out of the Cleveland area. The Kellogg-led Vikings cruised through the regular season. He took St. Joe's all the way to the state finals. The Vikings fell to Columbus East, but Kellogg was immortalized.
They still talk down here in Ohio about what he did in the state championship game in 1979. 51 points, 24 rebounds.
He cemented himself as the best player in the country, the 1979 Mr. Basketball. He announced his college commitment, and he wouldn't be going far. Keeping Kellogg home was big for the OSU program, and as head coach Eldon Miller would say, it was big for the entire state of Ohio. The Buckeyes now had one of the most complete offensive players in the nation, a frontcourt star to play alongside standout center Herb Williams, and high-scoring senior guard Kelvin Ramsey. Kellogg's addition immediately vaulted Ohio State into championship contender status. He was an immediate starter, but for the first time in a long time, Clark Kellogg took a back seat. The expectations were through the roof, and doubts started creeping in. But he was on a team loaded with talent, and needed some time to find his fit.
You know, Dick, this is the team that he joined that already had the parts. You know, he had to fit in whatever was left. And a big difference there.
Then once he got more comfortable, he reassumed his role as a great scorer and rebounder. Now playing forward instead of center, he would get more opportunity to show his athleticism and finesse. He could handle the ball in transition and run the floor like a guard. He knew which lane to fill on the break and was a very good passer for a frontcourt player. So good that he even spent some time at the point. And his intelligence stood out more than anything. Clark Kellogg just had a great feel for the game.
A lot of people always make the point very clear that Clark Kellogg is a very intelligent basketball player.
Ohio State was a capable team. Even with Kellogg's early season struggles, they still won 11 of their first 12. One of those wins was a result of the poised freshman.
Indiana leads 58-57. There he is, Special K, Clark Kellogg. Yes, coming up, 7 seconds left. Yes!
Hitting 2 free throws in the final seconds to defeat Isaiah Thomas and Indiana. But then as conference play heated up, the tournament favorite Buckeyes were barely playing 500 ball. A late season recovery would see them win 4 of their final 5 to finish the regular season with 19 wins. And more importantly, get a bid to the NCAA tournament. A double-double from Kellogg in his tournament debut helped OSU knock off Arizona State and move on to a Sweet 16 matchup with Kiki Vandeweghe and the UCLA Bruins. Ohio State played a good game for the most part, and Kellogg contributed 12 points and 8 rebounds. But the difference maker was fouls. Kellogg was one of 3 starters to foul out, and the Buckeyes fell to the Bruins. With Kellogg's freshman year ending, with him averaging about 11.5 points, 8 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. Clark Kellogg's freshman year hadn't been bad at all, but because of the expectations, his on-court performance seemed underwhelming. But now with the year under his belt, 1981 was expected to be his breakout.
I think his year is going to come next year. I think he's going to, with a little experience, he's going to become the super player everybody expected.
After losing Ramsey to graduation, the Buckeyes would need a lot more from a sophomore Kellogg, and that's exactly what they'd get in 81. On paper, Ohio State's front line was one of the best in the nation, with Kellogg, Herb Williams, and Jim Smith, and Kellogg would make a huge leap. He was putting up nearly 6 more points per game to lead the Buckeyes, and his 12 rebounds would lead the entire Big Ten Conference. People thought 81 would be OSU's year, but the on-court product said otherwise. Last year, the Buckeyes had one of the nation's stingiest defenses. This year, that wasn't the case. The team started 2-3 and fell out of the top 25. Many felt that Kellogg wasn't nearly as involved as he should be, so Miller got him more involved, and OSU won 4 straight. Kellogg had an interesting role on offense. When teams played man defense, Kellogg played forward. If they switched to zone, then Kellogg would man the point. But it didn't seem to matter where Kellogg was playing. He could only do so much, and Ohio State wasn't winning. Their 4-game win streak was the high point of the season. They were fighting to stay above 500 all year. They held up for a while and were challenging for the Big Ten championship, but a late season collapse saw them drop 5 straight. They finished the year at 14-13. They were supposed to be playing for a national championship, but they wouldn't even get an invite to the big dance. A disappointing season ended with Kellogg averaging about 17.5 points, 12 rebounds, and a steal per game. Without sugarcoating it, it had been a terrible season in Columbus. Herb Williams was on his way to being a first-round pick in the 81 draft, and Kellogg could have followed him. After his great year, many thought he would, but he decided to return for the 82 season as the team's unquestioned star. A junior Kellogg didn't have as much talent around him as he had the past 2 years, but he would have a good sidekick in sophomore forward Tony Campbell. Ohio State was one of the lowest scoring teams in the nation, but that was because they rediscovered their defensive identity in 82. Kellogg saw dips in his numbers due to the change in play style, but was still averaging a double-double on his most efficient shooting season by far, once again leading the Big Ten in rebounding, a stat which Kellogg took a lot of pride in, and his most noticeable improvement was how much more controlled he was. Kellogg had over 100 turnovers in each of his first 2 seasons. As a junior, he cut that number down to 63. Kellogg was much improved, yet the Buckeyes got out to another shaky start. But right before things got out of control, OSU rattled off 9 straight wins. And Kellogg was happy. They would hit another rough patch, but ended the year winning 7 of their final 8. It was the first 20-win season of Kellogg's college career, paired with a first-team All-Big Ten selection, and the Buckeyes had played themselves back into the tournament. Kellogg had a good start with 14 points and 12 boards against James Madison, but OSU saw their season come to an end after a second-half collapse, and Kellogg concluded his year with averages of about 16 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 1.5 steals per game. Just a few years earlier, many were saying that Kellogg could make the jump to the pros straight out of high school. Opinions had changed since then. His time at Ohio State had been great, but the expectations were so high when he joined the program that to some it felt like he underachieved in a Buckeyes uniform. NBA scouts shared their own mixed opinions, but one thing that everyone agreed on was that Kellogg was a top-tier rebounder, and that alone made him NBA caliber, and Kellogg didn't want to lose his chance. So instead of returning for his senior year, he declared for the 1982 NBA draft.
Indiana picks 6'7", 215-pound forward from Ohio State, Clark Kellogg.
While he had his critics, not many expected Kellogg to drop to number 8. The Pacers' biggest need was in the backcourt, but they never expected Kellogg to be available, so they couldn't pass him up. And even if the NBA didn't work, Kellogg had already been working for years.
You became an insurance agent at age 18. How's that working out?
It's going pretty well. I haven't had a lot of time this summer to really concentrate on that because of the draft and making this transition, but I think I'm going to pursue that during the off-season of my professional career and also after pro ball.
Pacers head coach Jack McKinney couldn't stop raving about his new forward. He was immediately a member of the first unit at practice, and soon after, Kellogg agreed to a 4-year contract. He was finally leaving Ohio, but it wouldn't feel all that different in Indiana. Just like at Ohio State, the Pacers were set to roll out a Clark Kellogg and Herb Williams frontcourt, and with high-scoring guard Billy Knight, they looked to have a solid team. It was the beginning of a new era in Indiana. The Pacers hadn't seen much success since merging with the NBA, and they were hoping to return to their ABA glory days. McKinney stuck with Kellogg on the first unit. The rookie was a starter come opening night. In just his second career game, he finished with 22 and 9. It was foreshadowing for the type of season he was about to have. Kellogg's versatility was on display all year. To the surprise of no one, he was a tenacious rebounder. His work on the offensive glass was especially impressive. He was the cleanup man on a lot of Pacers misses, and it led to a lot of easy buckets. But Kellogg's offensive game extended well beyond hustle points. He could go coast to coast off a missed shot and finish. He showed off a decent mid-range jumper and was still making some great passes. He was undersized for a power forward, but it didn't hinder him. And while he wasn't the most sound defender, he did have some active hands. Clark Kellogg had a career year. He led the Pacers in scoring, rebounding, and steals. People were talking about Kellogg as the best rookie in Indiana Pacers history. At the very least, he was one of the best rookies in the NBA.
A lot of people think this kid is going to get strong consideration for Rookie of the Year, along with Cummings from San Diego. And
Kellogg had 47 double-doubles on the season. 2 of those were 20 and 20 games. An April game against New Jersey saw him go for 30 points and 18 boards. 11 of those came on the offensive glass. The very next game, he went for 36 and 19, but it didn't matter. Indiana lost both. The Pacers were losing a lot. Their offense was above average, but on defense, they couldn't stop much. They began the season struggling, and it only got worse. They had the Rookie of the Year runner-up, yet they only managed 20 wins. Indiana clearly still had a lot of work to do before some real winning would happen, as Kellogg finished his rookie year with averages of about 20 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 1.5 steals per game. Clark Kellogg just finished his first season in the NBA. He was one of the hottest young players in the league, even securing an endorsement deal with Converse. He was a rookie who had played like a seasoned vet and looked like a superstar in the making, a bright light who now had the weight of a struggling franchise on his shoulders. It was a lot of pressure, but Kellogg preferred the idea of building from the ground up instead of looking for greener pastures somewhere else. Clark Kellogg wanted the challenge. He wanted to lead the Pacers back to glory. The Pacers shipped out their best backcourt player in Billy Knight. Then in the NBA draft, they missed out on Ralph Sampson by 1 pick, yet would still go for a big man, selecting center Steve Stepanovich 2nd overall. Indiana's front court was crowded, but Kellogg continued his star development. He saw his numbers dip slightly on a lower scoring Pacers offense, but would still lead the team in scoring and rebounding. Kellogg was addressing his weaknesses. Prior to the season, he said he wanted to improve his shot selection, and that's exactly what he did. He shot below 48% as a rookie. In year 2, he upped that to nearly 52%, and now he spent a lot more time on the wing. He was very involved in the transition game. Kellogg wasn't just a garbage man down low. He was exciting and dynamic. Indiana didn't want to take any chances. Kellogg's 4-year rookie deal was extended to 7 years. He dropped a career-high 37 points in a mid-January loss to New Jersey, but the Pacers' season had already gotten away from them. They won 5 of their first 25. Most games followed the same story. The Pacers come out flat and can't dig themselves out of a deficit. Indiana was hoping for much better, but their reality was 26 wins. It was more than last year, but it was also the least in the NBA. And to make things worse, Kellogg had rarely been playing at 100%.
I'm a little worried about Clark. He has not been feeling well at all on his knees, and he really took it hard. And Clark has been bothered by injuries, and I tell you, he's showing his determination to be out there.
But even so, Kellogg ended year 2 with averages of about 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. It had been far from the results the Indiana front office was looking for, so they would part ways with head coach Jack McKinney and replace him with George Irvin. Then while they were the worst team in the NBA, trades had left them with only the 18th pick in a very stacked draft class. They took what they could get and addressed their backcourt with guard Vern Fleming. The rest of their core looked pretty similar, but they needed to start producing results. Kellogg reported to camp in great shape, but it wasn't long before his knees started bothering him. He underwent arthroscopic knee surgery to treat chronic inflammation, but this was a separate issue from the knee tendonitis which had plagued him last year. Regardless, Kellogg was excited to play with the intensity and aggressiveness he felt he was lacking the year prior. He would sit out the first couple weeks as he continued his recovery, but after dropping 31 points in his second game back off the bench, all seemed well on the Kellogg front. His first game back in the starting lineup saw him finish with 22 points and 21 boards. If Kellogg was in pain, he did a good job hiding it. He was Indiana's leading scorer and rebounder for the third straight season, and he was hoping for some all-star consideration. But when you're on one of the worst teams in the NBA, it's hard to garner that recognition. Yet again, Indiana's season was over before it really started. They won 8 of their first 30 games. They hit 20 wins in mid-March, then didn't get number 21 until early April. Their defense had regressed to one of the worst in the league, and their record reflected that. 22 wins and 60 losses, tied for worst in the NBA, as Kellogg finished year 3 with averages of about 18.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. For the second time in 3 years, the Pacers just missed out on the number 1 pick. This year's consolation wasn't bad, but it was another forward. In Oklahoma's Wayman Tisdale, Kellogg had high hopes for this year. He felt more confident after spending the summer working on his outside shot. This was going to be the year that he became an all-star, and he was making his case early. He was off to the best start of his career, reaching double figures in each of his first 11 games and recording 6 double-doubles. But his knee problems returned. He was sidelined in late November. He needed another arthroscopic surgery on his left knee. Kellogg was discouraged. He had done everything. He was in the best shape of his career, but he still couldn't avoid injury. He wouldn't return to the court for nearly 2 months. He played in 8 games and mostly came off the bench. His knee was still bothering him. 2 weeks after coming back, he was shut down again to rest his knee. This time, he wouldn't return. Indiana had another sub-30 win season, and Kellogg's 19 games saw him average about 17.5 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. Kellogg was optimistic going into 87. He likely could have come back again last year, but the Pacers wanted to err on the side of caution. Indiana was still taking it very slowly leading up to this season, and Kellogg was thinking ahead as well, taking out a personal insurance policy before he began practicing with the team. But by opening night, Clark Kellogg was in the starting lineup, yet his minutes were low, and his production was nowhere near what he was accustomed to. His knee couldn't handle it anymore. After just 4 games, he needed another surgery. His season was over, and his career was in doubt. Kellogg finished with averages of about 5 points, 3 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. Following his most recent surgery, Kellogg's knee just wasn't responding the way he wanted it to. In August of 1987, Clark Kellogg made the difficult decision to retire from the NBA. Indiana had lost a great player and role model. Throughout his Pacers tenure, Kellogg showed a soft spot for helping kids. He would even have tickets set aside for less fortunate children each season, a section of seats affectionately known as Kellogg's Corner. But his playing career was over, and Clark Kellogg was only 26 years old. He would have to find something else. And he would a few years later, when he joined ESPN as an analyst. This would kick off one of the all-time great broadcasting careers. For 35 years and counting, Kellogg has worked as an analyst with both ESPN and CBS. He became the lead college basketball analyst for CBS Sports, and would even call some games for his own Indiana Pacers. The Pacers would also name Kellogg their vice president of player relations. And then there's his role as a virtual analyst. Kellogg's biggest claim to fame among the younger generations is his recurring role as a commentator in NBA 2K. all of his work culminating with Kellogg receiving the prestigious Kurt Gowdy Media Award from the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Nothing should be taken away from the incredible broadcasting career of Clark Kellogg, but it's unfortunate how many people aren't aware of his NBA career. Obviously, it didn't go as expected, but Clark Kellogg was a walking double-double, with a unique offensive skill set for a front court player. Even if he couldn't score, Kellogg would always have had a spot on a team for his rebounding alone, but it just wasn't in the cards. Yet another promising career ruined by injury, and while it was short-lived, Kellogg established himself as one of the NBA's premier forwards, and was loyal to the Pacers through one of their worst periods. He may not be an NBA legend, but for what he's done for the game of basketball, Clark Kellogg is legendary. But that's it for today's episode on Clark Kellogg. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. If you liked it, check out this one on his Ohio State teammate, or this one on his Indiana Pacers teammate. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.